fighter that got you into MMA? I mean, like, for, like, a lot of people, you know, like, Conor McGregor is going to be the pick. For some people, it's, like, if you're not from the U.S., it's usually, like, a countryman of yours. You know, I've heard Ronda Rousey. For women, I've heard Ronda Rousey being a big factor. For a lot of people who grew up watching the sport, approaching the inevitable pain that is turning 30 soon, Chuck Liddell would be a good pick. For a while, he was the most popular fighter in the world and was just instantly iconic with those Iceman trunks and the mohawk. So, today, put on your tap-out shirt, frost the tips, and let's blare some stim, because we are going back to the year 2004 for UFC 47. It's on. UFC 47 took place on a Friday of all days, March 2nd in 2004 in Las Vegas, Nevada, the Mandalay Bay Arena. It made around $1.4 million at the live gate with only a little bit over 11,000 attendees. It did rake in over 106,000 pay-per-view buys, which was actually back in the day pretty good. But now it's time for the main card. It's a heavyweight fight between Mike Kyle, known for being a dirty, dirty fighter, and Wes Sims, who was a Team Hammerhouse protege. The fight opens up, big looping high kick from Sims. Kyle avoids it and tries for a takedown, which is kind of weird. You know, he's known as the striker in this matchup. And Sims gets a guillotine, and it looks really good. Sadly, he doesn't get it. Kyle gets on top of him. And then some dirty shenanigans begin to ensue, as Mike Kyle rakes his eyes a couple times. Big Johns does stand him up. Sims is slow to get up, and he's complaining about something. He actually tries to, like, walk out and leave. And Mike Kyle says, nah, none of that, and just swarms him with knees and then a big right hand to get a finish. Then Wes Sims shows the world what he was complaining about. He's got a bite mark, like, on his pec. Yeah, Mike Kyle just full-on tried taking a chunk out of him. What is Mike Kyle's defense, though, when Joe Rogan puts the mic in front of him? Nah, he's dirty, too. Just not a good guy. 4 out of 10. I mean, honestly, nothing too crazy outside of the finish, entertainment-wise. And honestly, we would have forgot this fight ever happened if it wasn't for the blatant biting of Mike Kyle. You can actually hear the corner and Wes Sims going, like, when they're trying to find the replay of it. And it's like, during the choke. So, potentially, the only reason he didn't get guillotined is because he bit him. I don't know. So, what's our second fight? Oh, Nick Diaz, Robbie Lawler. This is the first time we have a Diaz brother on the Retro Review series. And we got Nick Diaz, the better but less popular brother, taking on then super prospect and future UFC champion Robbie Lawler. So this was Nick Diaz's second fight in the UFC. He actually finished his Jeremy Jackson trilogy in his UFC debut. If anything, this is the fight that introduced him, you could say, to the world. Lawler was 8-1 going into this fight, with his only loss being by injury to Pete Spratt. And he was known for everything he was known for now. But he was a lot less technical and didn't have the fight IQ he does now. First round, Diaz just starts talking to him. He's landing first. He's landing the cleaner, tighter shots than Lawler, who's kind of winding up for these big bombs, and he isn't connecting as easily. Then Diaz clobbers him with a 1-2 that rocks him, and then it really pisses Robbie Lawler off. Lawler swarming after it. He just can't get the continued success. And Nick Diaz, I think he takes the first round easily. Second round, Lawler is having more success being patient, trying to pick his shots. He lands a really good right hand on the arms. It's a little sloppy. He isn't closing the door necessarily on his stance. And boom, short lead right hand gets planted on him. Nick Diaz just face planted and KO'd Robbie Lawler. 10 out of 10 for me. Easy. Yeah, it's just too awesome seeing these guys go at it so young like this. And, you know, honestly, the significance behind it aside, this fight is just great. It's amazing. Great fight. Third fight on the card, we have Wesley Cabbage Correra versus Andrei Arlovsky. So, Andrei Arlovsky actually at this point was 3-2 in the UFC, but he was marching towards a title shot with his momentum. In fact, this was supposed to be a title shot against Tim Sylvia, but he had gotten suspended for steroids. The steroids were still in his system when they tried testing him, getting him back into fighting shape. So they kept him on suspension. So the first round, Andrei Arlovski just dominates the striking. Fantastic low kicks. He's chopping down Cabbage and just lighting him up with right hands of all varying styles. Just a massive, massive mismatch. And Cabbage just, to his credit, takes it all, doesn't go down. Commentators are hyping it up. He's living up to it. Second round, more of the same. Arlovski finally gets the knockdown with a big combination. But then, Mario Yamasaki just stops the fight. In fairness, Cabbage didn't complain. And he was just outmatched really bad, so maybe they were looking for a way out here. This fight's a solid 7.5 for me. It's really one-sided, which, I normally don't care for, but something about this was really fun. Maybe Arlovski bias coming out. And there was some complaints I had with Arlovski kind of circling so hard that he would put his back to the cage and give up great positioning. But other than that, actually, it's a good fight. I liked it. Andrei Arlovski would become champion in his next fight. He'd get an Achilles lock against Tim Sylvia in his very next fight. Eventually, he would leave. He'd go to Affliction, Elite XC, Strikeforce, and then kind of create this career resurgence when it was all looking dim for him that led to him coming back to the UFC, where he found this really awesome niche beating random heavyweights at the Apex. Something that he's going to do for the next 80 years, I'm telling you. There's always that guy on these retro reviews that I go, this guy's career, worth checking out, X, Y, and Z. And this time, we get Yves Edwards. Sadly, this fight isn't that great, as he takes on actual terrible human being Hermes Franca. First round, Yves Edwards, he's controlling the striking when they're up on the feet. Franca is throwing really awkward-looking and terrible strikes. Gets an early takedown. It gets reversed. Edwards has a majority of the control. Second takedown attempt. Edwards actually gets put down on his back and has a really slick guard to get it back up to the feet quick. It's kind of an easy round, I think, in my mind, to go for Edwards. Second round, Franca has some more success on the grounds, actually, because with his first takedown, he gets some really good, solid control time. He's attacking with leg locks. There really wasn't a lot of time for Edwards to get going on the feet. He was just constantly defending either takedowns or getting put on his back, constantly defending submissions. Franca takes round 2. So Hermes is battling Leonard Garcia for who has the ugliest striking I've ever seen contest, and then he's going for a takedown. He got another one, but another great reversal by Edwards. And Edwards, at this point, is just stuffing takedowns over and over and over and controlling the striking. And that's enough for me. And the judges agree. They give him a split decision. Or at least 2 of the judges agree with me. 3 out of 10. Honestly, having Hermes Franca on my screen isn't fun knowing what we know now. And if you don't know, I'm not going to say it here. I'm not comfortable bringing my show down with that mess. So, if you're really curious, I would suggest Googling it, but it's rough stuff. That's just a warning. And now it's our co-main event of the evening with one of my boys from the Retro Review series, Chris Liddell, and he takes on Tiki Gosen. And so Tiki is actually 2 fights removed from his loss by cut to Robbie Lawler, while Liddell is 0-2 in the promotion, but he's got this winning streak going outside of the promotion. The first round, it's all on the feet, basically. A lot of waiting, and then one of them would leap in with a combination. But in my opinion, I really like Liddell in these exchanges. He's doing this really good job of landing a really cool lead leg roundhouse to the body at the end of his combinations. And the one time they were nearly going to the ground, Liddell was about to take Tiki's back, but Tiki just grabbed the cage, and it used it to spin out and get on the feet. Second round, both dudes just landed constantly. Really fun striking battle from both guys as they're both just laying the leather, they're mixing in kicks. Liddell actually catches a kick and gets it to the floor, and he instantly takes backside control. From there, it's a very quick bulldog choke and a very quick tap. And that's it. That's the fight. And I actually think this is a really fun, super quick fight. 8 out of 10. It's a little sloppy, but you know what, man? I really enjoyed it. I don't know. Again, could be Liddell bias. And as I've said before, Liddell is a dude I have picked in the Retro Reviewer series to go back. Hey, this is my recommendation. I'm a big Chris Lights Out Liddell fan. But now it's time for our main event. Chuck Liddell versus the Huntington Beach bad boy, Tito Ortiz, the master of the English language himself. So, the story for this fight's actually pretty interesting. Both dudes were training partners. Both dudes were under the same management. They both were managed by some balding white dude named Dana White. And when Tito was champion, he apparently didn't want to fight Chuck. because it was rumored Chuck used to beat him up in sparring. This led to beef between Tito and that Dana White guy. And then eventually their management changed up and they stopped training with each other. The hate was kind of real between these guys, and it's probably still real today. The UFC really wanted this beef settled in a title fight. Too bad Randy Couture put it into that, those plans. So first round's a little measured. Chuck's kind of putting the pressure on. He's stalking Tito a little bit, but they're both trying to find their shots and timings. But Chuck's busier, and he's landing some good single shots. At the end of the first round, though, he basically just storms in and lands a big right hand and then a big combination that ends in a high kick that's partially blocked. Tito is actually really amped up after this and is like freaking out and pushes Big John, yelling, "You can't hurt me." That's like a really fun, subtle foreshadowing there. So let's move on to the second round. Both dudes take the center of the cage. Tito moves in for a step jab and then a big step in right hand. And he seems like he took a thumb and he's kind of pawing at it. And as he's pawing at it, Chuck swarms. Big 1-2 down the middle, breaks through the guard of Tito. Just a legendary flurry. And Chuck puts Tito out to win the fight. I remember watching this one a ton growing up because of how awesome that flurry was. So I'm going to give it an 8 out of 10. Yeah, I think that's fine. Chuck would eventually get his rematch with Randy Couture, and he would win, becoming the light heavyweight champion of the world. And this started the legend of the Iceman himself. He was the most popular fighter, and he became arguably the best fighter with title defense after title defense after title defense coming in, even getting a rematch with Tito Ortiz. Tito, he never reached that mountaintop again, but he kept fighting for years and years, and he's even won some big fights here and there. Their rivalry, like I said, had one more fight, and you know what? As far as I'm concerned, it had 2 fights. It ended at 2 fights. It ended. So what's my overall thoughts for the card? It's a fun card. This is a really fun card. It's a lot better than I was expecting. I couldn't remember it because I was like 9 when this card came out. And I was looking at the fight list and I went, there's some good fights on here. But I wonder how the whole thing's going to be. It's a lot of fun, 8 out of 10. It's good stuff. Some weird stuff, obviously. And some mass stuff. But overall, it was a lot of fun. I had fun watching it. I really enjoyed it. But that's it for me. Be sure to check out all my retro reviews on the main channel, as there is a playlist now. I love doing these. I can't wait to put out more and more for you guys. And if you really want to request a card, go to Patreon and request one for me to cover. We actually have our first one, and I'm actively working on it right now. So request one. If you don't like me and you want to torture me, request a Connor card. Specifically the one with my most hated fight of all time when he fought Aldo. Just a little idea in case you don't like me. But if you love me, maybe request something like Pride, like a Pride event. Pride never dies. Anyways, I'm Joe with the INC. Thank you for watching.